Though we may get a Texans playoff game on a Saturday every single year, this might just be the most wondrous matchup of all of them because, first and foremost, the line is sub 3, which means that Vegas is giving us no real inclination on who's going to win. So that is basically just thrown out the window. You got to do the analysis on your own, which I hate. I just want to be able to make ridiculous videos that are solely predicated on the gambling lines and put no thought into it at all, but I have to actually think for this? Crazy. Anyways, the first advantage is for the Chargers, where according to my blended stat of 4 advanced metrics combined into one, Justin Herbert ranks as a tier 2 out of 5 quarterbacks, out of 5 tiers for quarterbacks, I should say. If he was a tier 2 quarterback out of 5 quarterbacks, that would be pretty worrisome. He would be really not that good. CJ Stroud is a tier 4 quarterback out of, again, 5 tiers of quarterbacks. So Stroud is not doing too hot this year. Keep in mind, this stat is largely predicated on the passing success of the team as a whole, and is more so that than it is individually for the quarterback. But obviously, the quarterback has the most responsibility for how good the passing offense is going to be, so that's why I label it as a quarterback stat. So, with that said, the next advantage is also for the Chargers, as Lad McConkey is 10th in yards per route run versus Kamari Lassiter, who is 23rd in PFF coverage grade. He is a very good corner. Don't let that get twisted. And he plays a very difficult role because he's in the top 25% for man coverage played, as he plays about 32% of his snaps in man coverage, which is very high. He plays a lot of man coverage and he's very good at it as well, which is so hard to do because that is the harder coverage. You have to be on your guy with no help oftentimes, and he's able to do it. Lassiter is going to be able to keep up with McConkey, but I don't think that it's going to be an advantage for Houston by any stretch, and I think it would be pretty close to one for the Chargers, so I do lean in giving them a point for this matchup because the difference between 10th in a stat and 23rd in the corresponding defensive stat is pretty notable. So I think that McConkey getting the point makes sense. For the next advantage, we have Quentin Johnston as the 46th ranked yards per route run receiver versus Derek Stingley Jr., who is an elite 12th in PFF coverage grade. He doesn't play a tremendous amount of man coverage. He plays 1 percentage point higher than average for man coverage, which is to say he plays 27% of his snaps in man. So he plays ever so slightly more in man coverage than the average corner does, but he does so at a very high level as well. He is everything you want in a man coverage corner. He is super athletic. He's very physical. Not overly physical, though, that he's getting penalties. And he makes great plays on the ball, which is just an added benefit. If you can be locked down in coverage and not be great at intercepting the ball, that's going to be just fine. But he is a real do-it-all guy in that he is able to bring home a lot of interceptions as well. Even if he doesn't have the greatest interception numbers throughout his career, he did in college, which is proof enough for me that he has it in him to be a ball hawk. So that advantage goes to the Texans, and it's now 2-1 in favor of the Chargers. The next advantage will also go to the Texans, making it 2-2, as the Chargers are 18th in rushing expected points added, and the Texans are 6th in rushing defense expected points added. So it is an elite matchup against a roughly average offense, and that's obviously going to favor the Texans, so you got to give them a point. The final advantage from the perspective of the Chargers will actually be a no decision, as Khalil Mack is 38th in pressure, but Laramie Tunsil is 5th in PFF pass blocking grade. So there is an obvious advantage to Tunsil, but I think that Mack is good enough. Being 38th out of all players in pressures is a good ranking. So that is to say that I don't think there's an advantage for Tunsil, at least not enough to give a point out, because it's really hard for me to conceptualize giving points out to offensive linemen against great defensive linemen. There always is the chance that they give one sack up and that kind of ruins the whole day. And with that said, I don't like to give points to the offensive linemen. I think that they prevent the other side from getting a point in the advantage, so that makes enough of a difference by itself. As we shift over to the Houston perspective, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you like and subscribe, as we'll be pushing out tons of football and in the future NBA videos as well. And with that said, Houston has a major advantage with Nico Collins, who is 3rd in yards per route run, versus Terhib Still, who is 21st in PFF coverage rank. He's in the lower 25% for man coverage, as he plays it only 21% of the time, which, if you haven't picked up on it, 26% is the average percentage. So he's a little bit low, but he's not devoid of man coverage prowess. He's just really, really good as a zone coverage corner. And they also run, just schematically, a fair amount of zone and not too much man in the Chargers realm. So they kind of do that schematically. They're somewhat hiding their players, I think, from man coverage opportunities that would possibly be treacherous for them. But I think more than anything else, they just like playing zone because they have in Jesse Minter a really good play caller that can scheme up good blitzes in zone coverage and also just get generating pressure from base zone looks as well. So with all that said, Nico Collins is superior to Still, which is no knock on Still. I want to give both of them their flowers. Still is, I would say, one of the 2 or 3, at a minimum top 5 best corners for rookies. And he was like a 5th round pick, I want to say. He wasn't very highly drafted. He is sensational, though. He has been breathing life into this Chargers defense. Nico Collins is just one of the 3 best receivers in the league. You could give me any order of Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, and Jamar Chase, and I wouldn't think anything of it, no matter how you do it. Which is not the craziest thing, because it's only so many configurations when you have three variables. But either way, it still goes to show that they are some very elite receivers, and they're in great company. So the next advantage will go to the Chargers, as the Texans don't have a good rushing attack. They are 23rd in rushing expected points added, and the Chargers are 9th in run defense expected points added. So that is a glaring difference. The Chargers have a really functional run defense. The Texans are about as bad as you can be while still being somewhat functional. So moving now to the pass rushing side of things, the Texans have such great edge rushers, but they're going to be neutralized a fair amount because Danielle Hunter is ninth in pressures, and he's going against Rashawn Slater, who's the number 3 pass blocking tackle in PFF grade. That is rough. Hunter against basically anybody else is going to be at least even with them. But here there's a pretty solid advantage to the Chargers. And again, as I said before, I'm not going to give out advantages to the offensive line because they're stopping the defensive line from getting an advantage. And I want to be consistent with that. The next matchup is the same thing, just a little bit worse. Will Anderson is 35th in pressures despite missing 3 games. So that's pretty impressive. To miss 3 games and still be really highly ranked like that, that's good stuff. And he's going against Joe Alt, who's 23rd in pass blocking grade, which undersells him a bit, I feel, because he has just gotten better throughout the year and has developed pretty strongly as a rookie in pass protection. He's also really improved as a run blocker because in week 1, he was horrendous as a run blocker. And he's now really solid in that regard. So, with that said, this is another draw, no advantage for either side. And that takes us to the tiebreaker portion, which is going to be the quarterback matchup. It is the most important thing in football after all. And I have to go thereby with the Chargers because I do think Herbert is a fair amount better than Stroud. Stroud, admittedly, has not had the best supporting cast with his offensive line, and he's also had a rotating cast of receivers as well, now having Deontay Johnson, Nico Collins, Tank Dell as his 3 guys, in addition to Dalton Schultz and then Joe Mixon at running back. That's really impressive on my part to be able to know those 5 players. I'm proud of myself. And with that said, they have some life because they do match up pretty evenly across the board. So it is just going to be down to who executes better. And I think that the Chargers will because I think they have the better quarterback situation. And I think that they're solidly coached. I don't think they're greatly coached like some people might, but I think that they are well coached. And I think the Texans are also well coached. But I just think that the Chargers are not going to give this game up. Those are my thoughts on the game. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comments section. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more football content.